All right. We're here again today. Another episode of the Industrialist. And got a very special guest here today. The new business development manager at Fort Capital.
There we go.
Andrea Heist.
Jeremy, I am so excited to be here. Yeah. And everyone says that. I thought about this and I was like, how can I respond creatively? Because everyone says like, I'm happy to be here. But I didn't come up with anything. But I want you to know I'm really excited to be here. I think it's going to be a great conversation. And I appreciate you inviting me.
Well, I think you said that with more passion than most people. So how about that?
Well, thank you.
And it's very truthful. So.
Yes, I really do mean it. I'm honored to sit here. I'm excited.
Yeah. So no, we got to know each other, I guess 6-8 months ago.
Yep.
I knew we had reached a point in property management where it was either time to make a decision one way or the other. And I knew what decision I wanted to make, and that was to hire someone better at it than me.
Yeah.
And so I texted Chris, and he put me in touch with you, and that was it. So
the rest is history.
The rest is history. So now something really, I think this is really important to start with right now, is the Frogs are giving up 16.5 points to the Houston Cougars this week.
This is a sore subject, Jeremy.
Well, I mean, you're favored by 16.5.
Yeah.
And Houston's kind of garbage.
Yeah.
So what do you think? You think TCU's covering? It's a little up and down season for you guys.
If I'm being completely honest, I am long Frogs, regardless of what all of the betting is and what the assumptions are. I believe in the Frogs. I think we're going to come out with a dub.
Yeah.
And I think that we've got the passion in the team. So I think we're good.
Are you covering 16.5 though?
If I'm being completely honest, this will actually segue perfectly into my upbringing. But I don't even know what that means, Jeremy. That's the honest truth. I think covering means, do I think that they are going to be... There's going to be a 16-point win on the Frog side, correct? If I say I'm covering.
Okay, so think about it this way.
Explain it to me. Let's chat
the
sports.
The Frogs are negative 16.5. When you see it in the paper, not even the paper, on the internet. When you see it on the internet, it'll say minus 16.5.
Okay.
So that means at the start of the game, the Frogs are down 16.5 points. So they have to score 17 points more than Houston for you to win.
I would have to say that I think that's correct.
I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think Houston is total hot garbage.
Yeah.
And I think the Frogs are going to get it together. They're in Amon Carter this weekend.
It's a home game.
Home game.
There's another special component when you're playing at home.
Absolutely.
The cheers are louder.
Absolutely. So don't feel bad about not understanding the bets.
I'm a candid person. So, I'm not going to lie to you.
We get on here all the time, and me and my brother make bets, and Will just kind of stands here glazed over.
Yeah. He's like, okay, when are we talking about the deals?
I texted him one time, and I said, hey, Pitt, we always get hit the Pitt bet from him because his uncle's the head coach at Pitt.
Got it.
And so I said, hey, Will, what's the Pitt bet? I go, they're -2. And he goes, I'll take them money line. He goes, if that's what that means. I'm like, no, it's not what it means. I know what you mean. I don't know if you know what you mean.
That's so funny. I'm the Will. I am the Will.
So don't feel bad. This is an educational podcast. We're here to teach people about certain things. And college sports betting is a very big... You're starting to have to business develop brokers. You better learn they're all gambling degenerates. So.
I know. I've learned that. I've been in this business, this new role for 30 days, and I've talked more about sports than I have in a long time. But I will say I was raised around all sorts of sports, came from a very sports-heavy background. My dad played baseball at UTEP.
Yep.
My mom did not play sports in college, but my older sister played volleyball, indoor volleyball, outdoor volleyball, golf. She was the first triple athlete at TCU. Shout out Lex. Yeah.
Volleyball, golf.
So there was indoor volleyball and beach volleyball.
Got it.
And so, Alexia played 3 sports. So I grew up going to all the sports things. And then my little sister was behind me, and she also played volleyball at TCU, indoor volleyball. So every time I see somebody or I go home, they're like, which one's the volleyball player? And I'm like, these two. And it's really funny.
But you played volleyball also, right?
I did. I played volleyball all the way through high school, but my dad always says anyone who talks about high school sports just didn't play in college. And so I don't usually tell people that. But I played in high school. I loved it. I really did. I learned so much. I feel like sports really did teach us like lessons, competitiveness, hardworking, time management, and truly just like where you put your time is where your outcome is going to be. And so we would wake up and grind on Sundays and go do stadiums with our dad. And he had us grinding from a very early age, go to the golf range. Oh my gosh, we were at the driving range all the time growing up. It was hard for me because I usually talk a lot. And so I wasn't the best golf fan. But yeah, I grew up kind of doing all the sports things, but I should know more. I hear it so much. I just check out. I'm just like, you guys vibe.
Yeah, no, it's, for the longest time, I coached my son's football team. And I quit watching football for those 7 years because I couldn't handle it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like be done coaching a game and I'd be like, I don't even.
Like,
everybody like, oh, you see what's going on? I'm like, I got no clue.
Like, dude, I can't do this and this. Oh, so, I get it.
Let's start from the beginning. You grew up in El Paso, Texas,
born and raised. I love El Paso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big is El Paso?
Oh man, all I know is that it's growing a lot. I don't know exactly how big it is. I probably
How many industrial square feet does it have?
Oh, too many to count. Too many to count. Hopefully we're in El Paso
It's probably
soon.
Like a 200 million square foot market. I bet it's 150 to 200 million.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I do know that it's a super enticing market. I went to an event down there actually the past few weeks. Chris was speaking in El Paso. And I went down there and there was no real reason that I was going down there except for the fact that I'm like, I want to support Chris. I want to hear him. And I just want to meet people. I'm from El Paso. And I know so many people that I grew up with. They've known me since I was like 10. I got to that event and my mom was at the event because she wanted to hear Chris speak too. By the end of the event, I was like, I don't know who brought who to work. I was like, I thought I was bringing my mom to work and she brought me to work. She introduced me to so many people. And I just believed in like the timing thing, like meet people. And there were people there that I came back to DFW and some people are still here in DFW. And I think it's a testament to just like the relationship component of the real estate industry and the timing. Sometimes you don't really know why you're going to this. And Chris has spoken about this on his podcast as well. But if you just feel like, I got to be there. I was there and I got to listen to him speak and meet a bunch of really cool people, which was fun. But I love El Paso.
So it's good to go back in kind of a different capacity other than just a resident.
Oh, yeah.
So
and then there were some people there that I've known my whole life. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like connecting the dots, like he's the development guy and this is the industrial guy. And it was cool to go back and be working while being home. It was fun.
Yeah.
I love it. I love El Paso.
We've got 2 deals in El Paso. We've got 2 Murphy's fuel stations.
Nice.
One's in Socorro, which is El Paso area. That one's, these are our pref deals we did, but we got 2 in there right now.
That's awesome.
So you grow up in El Paso.
Yep.
Do you just automatically go to a TCU because your sister's at TCU?
Good.
Is that
It's a good story. Yeah. I'd say it was a large factor.
Yeah.
Alexia, I would go watch her games. And so when you get on the TCU campus, I don't know if everybody's been on it, but it's phenomenal. It's beautiful. I feel like it's like the Disneyland of college campuses. And it's just got a vibe. There's a feeling. There's community. People are really nice. They want to help you. The smaller class size was really enticing to me. I'm a little hyper. Most people who know me know that that's true. And so having like 20 to 50 people in a class was something that was really interesting to me. I also applied to A&M. I applied to Texas. I applied to all the big Texas schools. It really came down to A&M and TCU. I chose TCU. I'd say a lot of it was because Alexia was there, but this class size was super important to me. And then just, I thought it would be a really fun school to go to. Had good sports, and had an entrepreneurship major, which honestly, I wasn't even super set on entrepreneurship when I applied to TCU. But at my time there, I was like, this is where I want to be. So it was great. Great decision. I love TCU.
I took a visit to TCU in high school for football, and I really liked it, but I didn't get offered by them. But I really enjoyed that campus.
Yep.
And I've always kind of been like I guess closet TCU fan. Now
Let's
I'm kind of more of an SMU fan though. My nephew's at SMU, so I don't know. But
you might have to cut that part out.
Yeah. So
That's funny.
But I've always liked watching TCU, and I had a couple friends that played there.
Yeah.
And then when I was going to Tech, my girlfriend at the time's brother was playing at TCU, and then but no, it's I always enjoy following them, and
it's a good squad.
Did you go to the national championship game?
I did.
Was that pretty? Other than the
sisters.
game, was that pretty fun?
I had a blast. I mean, aside from the fact that like by halftime it was just like a really sad experience. We had so much fun. I stayed with a friend who lived up there, and so we had a blast. We also went to the bowl game before that, and so that was just like beating Michigan was insane. My whole family was there. All my friends from school and their family members were there, so we had so much fun at that game. I did go to the national championship though. And
did you go to the Big 12 championship that year?
Oh yeah,
I was
like a diehard fan.
Y'all lost that game.
I know,
that was
intense.
One of the most incredible games I've ever seen.
It was so awesome.
Yeah.
Honestly, even though we lost, it was a nail biter all the way through.
Yeah.
I just told you that I was not the sports person in my family, but I was dialed on that game. Like we were in a suite watching that game, and every single person in the suite was just like not talking, like locked in. There were definitely some moments of silence after the game was over. But it was fun. That season was insane.
Yeah.
Our team was awesome. Max Duggan. I mean, a big Max Duggan fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went to all those games and it was so fun.
That's cool.
I feel like a story you would probably like to hear about my time at TCU is that my freshman and sophomore year, I'm sure you've heard this a million times on the podcast, I probably didn't focus as much on school as I should have. And so I basically came back home on Christmas, and you have to have like a certain GPA in order to get into the business school. And so I came home, didn't have the GPA. You had to apply that semester. And so I was like, hey, Mom, Dad, unfortunately, I do not have that GPA. I really like economics, though. And my parents were like, you literally hated economics your freshman year. You don't like economics. I was like, I want to stay at TCU. I could be an economics degree. It's a whole thing. And my dad was like, no. He's like, you're coming back to UTEP, or you're going to another school, but like you had your shot. Yeah. You missed it. That's that. And so I go to bed that night. I wake up the next morning to my dad coming in my room, which I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I have one question for you. And I go, yes. And he goes, do you believe in yourself? For some reason, I said yes, extremely confidently and quickly.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm giving you one shot, one semester, and you need to get into the business school. Like, you need to bring up your GPA. You need to find the library. Mm-hmm. And he was very adamant about that. And he's like, you need to, you have one shot. He's like, I remember so many people that gave me a second chance, and I'm going to give you a second chance. You got one semester, go do it. Yeah. And I found the library. I had no life. I was so focused. In that semester, I made a good GPA, but it wasn't good enough still. So I put my Ann Taylor suit on, and I locked up, had a pad folio from Office Depot with my resume and all my grades, semester over semester. Got a meeting set up with Lynn Mueller at TCU, and I told her my story. I'm like, I am a straight shooter. Here is every single grade I've received at the school. It's only going to continue to increase. And I just need someone to take a shot on me. And I got into the business school. It was something that I think really formed my level of persistence and just like never give up. You got to believe in yourself. That's the number one thing. It's so important, and obviously really grateful for my dad to give me that opportunity. But that's a little sneak peek of my time at TCU. So it was awesome. But
well, you've told me this story before, but I think everybody needs to hear it. Tell us about your dad and like the company he started and all this stuff. I thought that was fascinating. So.
I have told you this story. I'm going to back up and tell you even more of the story.
All right.
And then I'll get into my dad and mom because they're both the hardest working people I know. But so I did a little prep coming into this podcast, and I was like, what do I want to talk about? My upbringing? What's it like? People meet me and they're always like, man, how did she become like that? And a lot of it comes from my family. And I did some research on my grandparents. Both grandfathers were businessmen. My dad's dad worked at the same company, Chevron Oil Refinery, for 31 years. Okay. Super dialed, steady, consistent, believed in moderation of everything, was just like an even keel guy. He had even keel unless a ref made a bad call, then he was not even keel at all. But he kind of showed me that like consistency and repetition. He taught me so many lessons on that front. He taught me how to multiply at his kitchen table. And then I had my mom's dad. On the other hand, he owned his own company. The name of it was Truck Sales, and he basically did international truck sales and heavy machinery sales, real estate, anything you could buy low and sell high. That's what he was in the business of doing.
That was the game plan.
That was the game plan. And he taught me so much about business. Totally different perspective from even keel, steady, stay at the same company for your entire life. That's kind of what you do, to I'm doing whatever's going to make me the next buck from one day to the next. And he taught me you make your money when you buy. He taught me the kind of the power of talking to people, relationship building, and just to be yourself. Yeah. I think so many people in this day and age, they try to be this like thing, this persona, this salesperson. And I'm like, I am not that. I am being myself. I'm genuinely creating relationships and building them and networking with people who have a need, similar to what we've talked about. And I want to talk about the services that fill that. And so those are my grandparents. Those are my grandfathers specifically. So that's kind of how I really got a lot of the business like blood in me.
And so they both live in El Paso.
They both lived in El Paso.
That's awesome.
And so that's kind of where it started, almost in that generation. Okay. Then rolls around Chuck Heist, the legend. And this is where I learned so much. Chuck is my father. Okay. B is my mom. Alexia is the older sister. Alyssa's the younger sister. And so it's 3 girls, one very lucky dad. And my dad, I wrote down a list of things that they sold, my mom and dad sold before they're starting their company. They sold pecans, trailers, cars and trucks, mobile homes, heavy machinery, industrial supplies, real estate, buildings. They kind of got that itch, the business itch of buy and sell. Yeah. And so they did that for a while. And then in 1995, my dad started his own company, Heist Disposal. And he started it with a pickup truck and trailer. Nothing was handed to him. He was a grinder. Yeah. He drove the truck when he started the company. He had a Monday, Wednesday, Friday route that he had, and he would go pick up the can. And my sisters and I had a very front seat to what it looks like to start your company, start a company. Before starting Heist Disposal, he actually had another little deal going for him. It was called Junk and Go. It was a literal trailer. Yeah. And he would just show up places and clean out garages, do all the stuff people didn't want to do. Yeah. And then he was like, wait, there's something here. And my grandfather, the one who was truck sales guy, he was like, Chuck and B, do something people need every day. Yeah. And they don't want to do it. Do something people don't want to do. Yeah. And so they freaking did that. And their company is turning 30 next year.
Yeah.
I think one thing that people think about, and when they hear my story and they're like, oh, your parents own a company, great, that's cool, whatever. They kind of assume that it's just this super posh, like your parents own a company. But I grew up and my dad was working at the yard, comes home, has oil all over him. Like he was grinding. This was not like he's coming home and had a really nice day in the office. Like trucks break down. Trash truck routes start at 2 a.m. And we kind of grew up hearing that. He's the call. He's the guy. He's answering the phone. And so we learned a lot about business. We started we would get paid, I think it was 5 cents a stamp. And when we watched Disney Channel, we had to be doing stamps. And we would stamp our envelopes starting when we were little. Then we grew up and we started answering the phones. That was like when you were promoted. You were like 13 and it was like, Heist Disposal, how may I help you? And so we just, I am so grateful to have been raised around people who were driven. They did it themselves. They were hustlers. They worked hard. And we respect our parents so much and they've taught us so much. I honestly think that they see us kind of working. Both of my sisters work at Stryker, a medical device company. And so they see us all kind of taking off on our own careers. And I think they're shocked that like we're taking it so seriously and the way that we grow and our reputation and kind of our work ethic has developed. They're like, what we did worked.
It worked.
It worked. So yeah, that's a little bit about them and Heist Disposal.
That's cool. No, I always tell people a lot of the buildings we buy, you know, we literally just get paid to take out the trash, but your dad literally gets paid to take out the trash.
Literally, 100%.
But, you know, I mean, that's, you know, to your point, you know, we'll deal with a lot of buildings that people don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, and just like, you know, there's a street in Dallas called Halifax Street.
Oh, I've heard this on the podcast. The bumpy one that goes.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. And but that was always my joke. I'm making a living taking out the trash on Halifax because the buildings down there are just garbage,
and no one wants to do it.
No one wants to do it. Now everybody wants to do it because it's Brook Hollow, and they came up with terms called infield and core.
Why'd they do that?
I know, right? So, but you know, there's something to that point. If what your grandfather told him was do something that nobody else wants to do, and people need it done. So that's
my dad, when we were during the whole COVID thing, we learned so much about business in that time as well, because I was like, you know, we're constantly thinking about business. Family dinner is business time. Yeah. We just chat all the time about all things, and it's fun to learn and chat. But he said, you want to learn about business? Go look at the COVID essentials list and the non-essentials. Choose something that's on the essential list. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's true. That's a pretty good piece of advice. And so, yeah,
no, you won't get shut down.
Yeah, no shutdown. And sure enough, trash was on there. So, yeah.
So did you, now since Chris is an El Paso and TCU guy, did you know him from El Paso or
This is a great segue.
So how did you get into Ford?
Yeah. So this is kind of a running joke in the office of how Andrea got to Ford. My family knew of Chris and his family. We didn't know them like personally. And so I was going into my senior year at TCU. I had worked for Heist Disposal the past 2 summers. And I was like, I think I want to stay in Fort Worth. And my parents were like, well, that's great, but you need a job. You're not just going to stay there and summer in Fort Worth. And I was like, okay.
I'm summering in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I'm going to summer in Fort Worth. And so I was like, respect, I get it. I'll get a job. But at that time I was focused in entrepreneurship and innovation. And so most people that major in accounting or finance, there's more of a clear like analyst path. Yeah. Entrepreneurship, it's like, do I graduate and start a company?
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of different things you can do with that major, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And my mom sent me a photo of the El Paso Times newspaper. and said, you should check out this company. And it was Fort Capital.
Okay.
And so obviously I go super hard on research. I basically memorize every single team member's bio. I'm just like dialed. I'm trying to get in touch. I ended up reaching out to an intern that was at Fort Capital, Cole Bamberger. He works at Link. Shout out, Cole.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, how do you like it? I'm interested in interning there, whatever. And he's like, I really like it. You got to talk to this guy named Steve. And I was like, all right, well, next person on my list, Steve. I got to get in touch with Steve. And so Chris was speaking at TCU that semester or whatever I was in. And I guess it was the fall semester or spring semester. And I had already applied. I'm pretty sure I applied to every single position on the website, not just the internship. And I had my resume printed, and there were so many people at that listening to him speak, probably 200 students. Mm-hmm. And I strategically was the last student to shake his hand because I was like, how does he remember all these people's names and what they want? And I was the last person. I said, Chris, I'm Andrea. I've already applied. I heard you tell the first 15 people in front of me to apply online. I said, I've already applied online. I have my resume. I need to get in contact with somebody. I want an interview and I want to work for Fort Capital. And he was probably like, okay, relax.
Okay.
No, literally.
Someone interview this girl already.
Literally, that's what happened. And so he was kind of going back and forth and asking me. I asked him questions. He asked me questions. And he finally gave me a contact and he's like, reach out to this person and they'll set you up with an interview with Steve. And he goes, what do you even want to do at Fort? And I was like, I'll do anything. Yeah. And in that moment in time, I thought I was saying the right thing by I'll do anything. But he was like, well, look at the website and actually think about what you want to do at Fort. And so I chose property management. At the time, Steve Bailey was just kicking off, starting an in-house property management group of people. And so I got the interview with Steve, put that Ann Taylor dress or suit back on and showed up with my Padfolio and all my notes. And I chatted with Steve, and I think I was the most passionate property management intern you've ever seen in your life. I got the internship. At the time, there were 3 people on the property management team and myself. So call it 3.5. Yeah. I was an intern, but I was an intern for a full year and I was super focused on just like writing everything down that we were doing. Cause I'm like, this is moving really fast. We're doing the right things, but we got to document how our processes are working on all of the different ways that we're doing things because we got to train the next property manager. And so that's what I did. And we've grown the team to almost 25 property management team members. And there are almost 60 people at Fort. And so we're almost half of the company now. Yeah. I got the opportunity to train all of the property managers, probably 20 property managers that started at Fort. And I spent 2 years being a property manager. And then I was like, Steve, I'm being a property manager, but I'm also training these property managers and trying to write down all of our processes. And I'm like, I don't know what this other thing is that I'm doing, but I'm doing something else. And he was like, well, that's operations. And so that's when I made the transition to operations. Spent 2 years in that. And now I'm on the business development side. So
you had really no clue what you were getting into when you got into property management.
No idea.
And I did it. It was a time in my life.
Yeah.
But I think so. I learned property management at 23, 24 years old. Probably,
right around me.
Around the same
That's
age,
the same
right?
thing.
And when I went into brokerage, it was very powerful because I already knew the lease. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of brokers don't know the lease. And if anyone's listening, if you want to know a lease, read it.
Yeah, like literally, just
every
read it.
lease you do, read it. Like just read it again and read it again, or put it in ChatGPT and tell it to break it down for you. And property management is a lot of interpreting a lease because a lot of tenants don't read leases.
Yeah.
And,
It's really just answering questions.
It is. But, after answering all those questions, when the test came up for me in brokerage, I knew the answers, And so, I think if you can start in property management, I think it's you learn how the things really work after the lease is signed, which there's so much that goes on after that.
And you learn so much about the asset physically.
Yep.
I think I underestimated how powerful that knowledge would be going into this new role, being able to talk about like the OpEx and the utilities and how all of those things work, reconciliations and different types of leases and what that expense responsibility looks like, depending on what your strategy is. And I had so much help from my entire team or the entire team at Fort, all of the different departments. I love learning things. And so every time I didn't know something, I would just go ask someone. And I was like, hey, Rob, what does this mean? Hey, Lorna, what does this mean? And so I was just like super hyper focused on learning as much as possible. And in those 2 years of property management, I learned what it looked like to lease because you're so involved on that front. I learned what a good tenant looked like. I learned what a higher touch tenant looked like. And just being on that asset, managing the construction, truly knowing the expense responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so simple, but it will directly impact the asset performance. And so that's something that I learned in property management that's super powerful.
Well, and the expenses are something that, sound very common to probably the audience for this.
Yeah.
But the audience of tenants, it's kind of tough to understand. Here's something that, I always thought was interesting, or for the way most leases are written.
Yep.
Is all tenants think that a triple net lease really favors the landlord and a gross lease is a better situation for them.
Yeah.
Well, most gross leases have a base year.
Yep.
But they don't
modified gross.
They don't. Yeah. Okay. We can get into definitions of leases, and then you'll have like 100 of them. Because
they always just toss little words on front and behind. Yeah.
And so, but my point is, on most gross leases or modified gross, they have a expense stop, base year stop, base year stop. They don't have a provision that gives back in the event there's a refund.
Yeah.
So it's actually beneficial to the landlord. So like if your base year taxes are $100,000 and the landlord gets them reduced to 80, the landlord keeps the $20,000.
Yeah.
And so I always just thought it was interesting that there's always this big push to get to triple net leases, because those are better for the landlord.
Yeah.
But in reality,
if you're doing different, it goes to prove that every single lease is different. Oh my gosh. And I know the majority of the conversations, usually people just say like gross or triple net. That's the jargon.
Yeah.
But even within gross or triple net, let's say they're all triple net. Every single one, let's say you got 50 triple net leases. I would like to bet that every single one of them is different.
Yeah.
Unless you're on like the exact same lease form. And even then there's negotiations and there's TI packages and there's security deposit. And there are so many nuances to every single lease that make it different. And I think that that's something that we train our team to be very focused on is every time a tenant calls you, which you're in the game in property management, you're in the game of service. You're answering the phone, you're responding to them, and you're referencing the contract that you have with them.
Yep.
Sometimes there's a lot of, I don't want to use the word emotion, but let's say a tenant calls and they're like, my toilet's overflowing. It's so scary. Oh my gosh, what do I do? You're responsible for this. And the human reaction is just to say like, let me take care of it. Oh my gosh. Let me get somebody out there as soon as possible. And we've taught our team, even if it's an emergency, it's a different situation. But if it's something that the tenant is just unaware of the responsibility, go look at the lease. It's going to solve the answer for you. And then put those white gloves on and say, hey, this is not our responsibility, but here are the vendors that we trust and we have great partnerships with. I'm happy to put you in contact with them. And so, the lease is is so key. And it's super helpful. Just that tool in the property management world, it's black and white.
I had a joke when I was tenant repping more that Prologis put out their clear lease. And I said, this is called an absolute net lease. Yeah. This is a forward absolute net lease. Anyways, Prologis would debate that with me all the time.
Oh, gosh. That's funny.
We'd have some good conversations. But in that lease, here's an interesting point. So that lease, the clear lease, it would charge you for capital expenditures that haven't happened yet.
Wow, that's aggressive.
They're waiting for them to happen. But guess what? We're going to take care of the air conditioners for you.
Well,
so that was the play. And so I remember I asked someone there one time, I said, so I'm paying the insurance and I'm paying the capital expenditure in on the roof.
Yeah.
What happens if you get a hail claim? They go,
that's a good question.
Well, we don't. I go, do I get my money back?
Yeah. Do I get paid?
Because I paid for the insurance that paid for the roof, that I paid for the roof in advance. Yeah. They go, oh, we just don't really get that many hail claims.
What an answer.
I was like, huh, okay.
Moving on.
So I haven't tenant repped anybody in a Prologis building lately, but I have never had a tenant of mine sign one of their clear leases. I've fought it so hard.
You're doing your job.
And I've circumvented it. I haven't signed one yet, but I haven't put anybody in one of their buildings in a while.
I'll have to keep asking you. I'll have to keep checking in on that one.
So, how many tenants do y'all have at Fort? Fort tenants and like third party, like what's the total?
Good question. We're right around 1,700 tenants as a whole. And so within that, I'd say there are probably 700 roughly that are third party. There might be a few less than that. I don't know the exact number, but our pipeline for third party property management is growing. Yeah. We want to expand on that. I think we have had roughly 4 years to really focus on the ins and outs of how do we do this better than everyone else. And so this is something that Steve taught me, but he's like, it all goes back to people. Who is on your team? How are you growing them? How are you teaching people? It's continuous education. I think that property management gets this rap of being something that doesn't get a lot of time spent on it. And we have truly invested so much time, so much investment in technology and basically trying to free up our property managers to think more like asset managers. I'm sure most people have heard Chris and Jason speak about that, but our property management team, they're really focused on having that owner's mindset, treating a dollar like it's theirs. We have a initiative and kind of, it's basically like the heartbeat of Fort, but it's called CORE, which means cost savings, overhead management, and revenue generation. Cost savings is most directly applicable to property management because that's where all the dollars are going out. And so we have basically taught our team to get bids, be super focused on, do the bids match? Does the scope of work match? Small granular things like that have added up to be such a powerful cost savings to the company, to the asset, to our third party property management clients. And so, we're looking to grow. We're excited about what that looks like. And I have a little bit more on that later, but
how many, when you started, how many tenants did y'all have?
Oh, gosh. Not that many. I'd say there were 26 assets, so probably 500 tenants.
Okay.
I want to say.
And how many square feet was that 500 tenants over? And how many square feet are you at today?
I think we were right around 3 million square feet. We are right at around 9 million. That's including third party.
Okay.
And so we've grown a ton. Internally, obviously, we've grown our portfolio a lot, but we also did kind of focus on that third party pipeline and growing that footprint, basically. When I started, there was only one third-party client that we were working for. Now we have 5. And so we're looking to continue to grow that and basically meet with people who are kind of like you guys, where it's like, we want to focus on acquisitions. We want to focus on transacting. And we need a really strong partner to manage the assets. Yeah. And so there's that market there that needs somebody to care, needs somebody to be an extension of the ownership group. And I think we take reputation really seriously at Fort, and we do the exact same for our third-party clients. We want to be an extension of the ownership group. And so it's grown a lot. When I started, there were 12 full-time employees, and we're almost at 60.
Yeah.
That's a really big number too, which is crazy.
When we were going through the decision to go to third-party, I remember a lot of people would say, well, you're going to lose control. I said, well, I didn't have control over that property manager that quit on me on a Thursday night either, and then left a pile of crap that we had to come clean up. You know what I mean? So we've been very happy with everything, obviously. And so I just think that's something some people think, I'm going to lose control of this. Maybe someone can do it just better. You know what I mean? And so that's the kind of the conclusion I came to. And I was just like, I don't want to do this.
The more that I've been in this business development role, I tried to write it down, and there's so many more scenarios than just these three, but I have talked to a bunch of groups that they either want to focus on transacting and acquiring, and they don't want to focus on property management. Great. They are thinking about bringing it in-house, and they're like kind of on that line of, do we do it? It's going to be a huge investment. Do we just find a partner that can do it better, or just be really good at what they do? And then there are the people who, and this is something that I don't think very many people talk about in the property management world, but let's say you do have an in-house group and you're managing the majority of your assets. There are not always, but there are usually one or two assets that you don't want to manage, whether that be just because of the asset type. Let's say you're buying all industrial and 90% of your portfolio is industrial, but then there's that 10 that has a little too much office or is kind of retail or kind of something else. And you're like, we just want to manage this. Yeah. So even if somebody's like, I have a property management group in-house, I'm like, I still want to talk to you because I know that there's opportunity to potentially help and on those assets that you're not, maybe it's not your bread and butter. And we are focused on industrial. Yeah. We kind of hold the line on, we don't want to manage anything we wouldn't own. Yeah. The reason being is because we are focused on industrial. We've gotten really good at that. And we believe in our team's capabilities on that front. We don't want to go outside of our comfort zone and overstretch ourselves on a different asset class that we've never managed before. And so that's what we're focused on. And it's exciting. It's exciting to continue to see it grow.
So with your core initiative, is that how third party came about? Through someone came in and said, hey, I got an idea for revenue generation and it's third party management?
I think that, Steve Bailey, our president, he at the time was the director of construction. And that's back in the day when we did some development in the River District of Fort Worth. Okay. We built a few offices. There was some multifamily. There was a little bit of retail. So they were building stuff. This is before I was there. But Steve was the director of construction. At that time, we also had roughly those 20 assets that we were outsourcing all the property management for. And to your point, we found it hard to kind of communicate or get the real-time information that we needed to make a move on something. And Steve is the one who, Steve and the team, they decided, hey, I think we can do this better. Yeah. Not only would that obviously save us money, but then it generates the revenue. And so it was almost a double whammy of we're saving all that money and then we go in and we make all that money and we have control of the assets. We're focused on it. If we need an answer from our property management team, we walk down the hallway. Yeah. And so it allowed us to move so much quicker. But yes, I'd say the core initiative played a role in that.
Okay. And then, so you guys are obviously in the Texas Triangle or all over Texas.
Yep.
is Texas the only place you're doing third-party management, or are you doing it in other states as well?
Right now, we're only doing Texas, and specifically within Texas, we're doing Dallas, Fort Worth, kind of the same, but we have offices in both, San Antonio and Houston. Yep. Those are where we have teams already kind of set up. We have offices in all of those markets. And so as of right now, if I had a conversation with somebody in those markets, our teams are kind of up and running there. Obviously, we want to continue having conversations about, your guys' stuff. You have some in Buda and Marble Falls, and it's a little bit further out than specifically San Antonio or Houston. But we're willing to talk with anybody in Texas. Yeah. That's where our teams are at right now. Florida, we don't have a team in Florida yet. Maybe we will one day, but right now it's all Texas.
How much footage do you have in Florida?
I would say right around 100,000 square feet.
Okay, so are y'all managing Florida?
So we have a team that's in Florida that is kind of, I would say we're more of an asset manager to that asset, but we manage that. We manage the manager. So we're technically managing it in-house, but we have a boots on the ground resource who kind of can get out there and help us do anything that we need done.
Got it. So I guess small bay is a lot of, or whatever bay, shallow bay,
small, shallow, whatever. People make things up all the time.
We have a whole segment on it. Words.
literally. We just talked about that.
So I always think someone like y'all are a very good barometer of the economy.
Yeah.
Because those kind of tenants are kind of I call it like the Main Street American dream kind of tenant. They're the guy that's like, hey, I'll go make $50,000 a year working in my own shop than working for someone else.
They're supporting their local economy.
Yeah. So have y'all seen delinquencies go up at all lately with the supposed economy that's bad? I don't feel like we really have on any of our stuff that we do still make.
I think that at one point, I don't think it was recent. If anything, it was maybe 6 months ago. There was this weird pocket, and it was mainly in like specific areas that I think it was mostly a testament to us kind of executing our business plan and getting some of those tenants to either renew or roll. And I would like to think that's what it was attributed to, seeing those delinquencies rise. But I feel like it's getting stronger. I feel like our property managers have a handle on the assets. I think a lot of what we see is mainly identifying the tenants that when we acquired, they were legacy tenants is what we call them. And once it comes time to renew, there's a sense of like expecting some sort of pushback or negotiation or potential delinquency or lockout or whatever towards the end of it, because they know that what is to come is not something that they're going to be able to do. And so I would like to think it was just us executing the business plan. But yeah, I'd say leasing is strong and we're still chipping away.
So that's always a tough part to do, which, is to go into the guy that's like paying $4 a foot. And you're like, hey man, this thing's like 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our Marble Falls project, before y'all had it, when we first bought it, everybody was month to month. We went in there. We're like, hey, you're paying 6. Market's 12. If you want to renew, we'll do your first year at 9. And it was like double birds. You're the devil. Everybody laughed.
Oh yeah. No, that's a real thing. Like I've been there for those conversations. And it's hard. I think especially my perspective with like being raised by the guy that was the American dream. Yeah. It was challenging for me in property management to go to those guys and be like, this is market. Unfortunately. And one thing that I always found reassuring as the property manager was like, go look around. Like we're not making this up. We're not pulling this number out of thin air.
Yeah.
I actually encouraged my tenants when they were like, I can't afford that. I'm like, that's totally fine. I mean, obviously we want you to stay and I want to retain you as a tenant. But if that's true and you genuinely can't afford it, go look at the other spaces in this market, in this area. And then usually they would come back and say, you're right. They were all at or higher than whatever we discussed. And then they end up renewing. And so once they get, it's sticker shock when they see it. Mm-hmm. But then once they get acclimated with the fact that it's really market rate, usually the renewal conversation
gets a little easier.
Comes back up. Yeah.
One line we always like to use is, we wouldn't expect you to charge less for your products and services than what market would be.
Yeah.
So we don't feel we should be.
For sure. We're all paying
less.
Someone.
I've always said this too. I said but it's kind of hard for them to mentally get over because you have the term Lord in your name.
Oh, you've told me this. We talked about this on the phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think when they hear you're the Lord, you are here to absolve them of all their sin. And, their sin is getting a really cheap rate for a long time, and acting like that should be market. And you should just forgive me of this and not make me pay new rent.
Yeah, it could be something like
so
that.
I think that's always had a connotation on it. And sometimes tenants don't realize that we're just running a business also, man.
Yeah.
Like this is, our product is a building, our service is providing you a space, and, in order to fulfill that based on what things cost these days, we have to charge an appropriate rent for it. So
everything's expensive.
I thought inflation was down. We lowered rates, right? It's all fixed. So.
I do think that once they kind of understand that, and it's really just, there's usually that sticker shock. And then once you kind of chat about it and they kind of come down from that initial reaction that they have, most of the tenants start to understand it.
I call it the shock and awe phase.
Yeah. Literally.
Like when we bomb a country, they call it the shock and awe.
Yeah.
Phase one is shock and awe.
But now I do.
Shock and awe. They're like, whoa!
Now I
do. So, but yeah, no, we've had situations where we've had to have like town hall meetings on why in the world are we doing that, and Joey's been circled at a property before by multiple tenants, But
I did something that I thought was really, really smart when I was a property manager. And I was like super focused on collecting rent because that's one of the most important parts of being a property manager. So I, very early on in my time, printed off little tiny, like how you pay rent. Like they almost looked like business cards, but they were out of normal paper. And I cut them up and I was super focused and I went to the asset, and I started handing them out. And I was like, this is how you pay rent, because they were genuinely asking me, like how to get on the portal or how to do this or and I'm like, I have a clear step-by-step of how to do this. And I was super confident walking out there, like, this is my job. I've got this. I've got these cool things. And then I found myself in the middle of like 50, not 50, there were probably 25 dudes just like collecting these little how to pay rent things. And I was like, I probably should go now. And that was such a funny moment because I was just like super confident, like, I'm going to get everyone to pay rent. And then I was like, this probably isn't the safest thing for me to be doing right now. Like, I'm swarmed. I'm completely swarmed by all these tenants. It was harmless, but it was kind of funny because I found myself being like, oh my gosh, there's so many people out here on the property, like a town hall type of thing. Yeah. And it was helpful. They started paying rent, so solved it.
They eventually get in line.
Once they get in a good rhythm, it's good.
So Fort's grown pretty significantly since you've been there. What's easier by being bigger and what's harder by being bigger?
Easier are the consistent day-to-day tasks, specifically because of the technology and how we've leveraged our operating system.
Yeah.
We basically have taken almost every single thing that's going to happen on a recurring basis, whether that be daily, monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually, and streamlined it to be automated. If it's going to be the same and there's a process and multiple people are doing it, why don't we just put that in the operating system to where you get reminded on the right day to do the right thing, just like every single other person? And so we've gotten really good at the consistent, repetitive tasks. That being said, I think the growth has really shined a light on when you're a smaller company, you make decisions really quickly and you incur change almost on like an hourly basis.
Yeah.
And you just do that because you can shout down the hallway and say, "Hey, Jeremy, we're not collecting COIs like that anymore."
Yeah.
And so now we have to think about, and we get to think about so many different departments and how one decision will impact all of the other team members. And so we have a meeting every Friday. The name of it is Strategic Alignment. We had it today. And it's like a 4-hour meeting. And well, I'd say it's 3 to 4. It depends on how much we've got going on. But all of the department leaders that are within their teams identifying decisions being made, and if there is a decision that needs to be made, but we need alignment within other departments, that's where we go, have those conversations, make sure every team is aligned. Let's say we want to change how we're doing work orders. And we think when there were 12 people, we could just change work orders. That's going to affect our accounting team. That's going to affect our maintenance technician. That's going to affect is the Houston team doing it the same way that the Dallas team is doing it? And we basically I wouldn't say it's harder, but I think we're more strategic in how we make decisions. We're not just making calls by the seat of our pants. We have to make sure that we have really considered and thought through everything because of the size of the company. We want to make sure one person isn't going rogue, and then we manage assets for you, and the DFW team is doing this process and the Houston team is doing a totally different process. So, I'd say the repetitive tasks we're super good at. And then just when we make decisions, we have to be more strategic.
So what I think is important for everybody to know what you just said is that owning real estate is an operating company. Like, don't kid you. Clint Riley and I were talking about this. You buy some buildings. You're like, cool. You like really want to go buy a bunch of buildings. You're starting a company.
Oh, yeah.
It's a totally different animal aside from just owning real estate.
Yep. I think something that I have learned from you is you have spoken a lot on your podcast of you being kind of this like individual contributor. You were the broker. You were doing deals. You were super focused and you were grinding. And then you started a team. Yeah. And now you're building that team. And how does that look like? And what does the growth look like? And to your point, it's making those decisions. And how is that going to impact this part of the team and this part of the team? And that's exactly what we've had to become more focused on and strategic about. So
thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you for getting it out.
You're welcome. I get what you're trying to say because I've heard you say it before on your podcast of like, you go from being the person that's doing the deals to growing a team.
Yeah.
And when you buy one asset, maybe you could do it yourself or whatever, buy a few, do it yourself. And then it's like, oh my gosh, to your point, it's an operating company. You need help.
Yeah.
And if you want to continue to grow, you're going to need more help. And then there's a team component, and something we are very focused on and we invest a ton of time in is growing our team sustainably and making sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
One thing that we do at Fort, a lot of companies have different ways to set goals, but we use something called OKRs, Objectives and Key Results. And they all ladder up to us wanting to be the best real estate operator in the world. We also have a flywheel that kind of has different spokes. If you follow Fort, you may have seen it on our website, in our office or something. But if we are not working on something, literally, it could be that Andrea, the property management intern, if I'm doing something and it's not laddering up to one of those goals or one of those spokes on that flywheel, then I'm not spending my time correctly.
Yeah.
And making sure as we grow that every single department, every single person is focused and working on something that's going to fuel the flywheel and ladder up to those goals. Because Andrea could be her business development manager running down this path of getting third-party property management clients. But let's say there's no goal to grow the third-party pipeline.
Yeah.
You have two people running in totally opposite directions at that point. And so something that's helped us as our team is growing is really hone in on what our goals are. I think that's really grown our team a lot.
So now you've gone from operations now to business development. You're business developing third-party property management, but you're also business developing acquisitions.
Yep.
So how's that learning curve going? Or I don't know if it's a learning curve for you. You've been around a lot of asset acquisition. So
I feel like I've been in training for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And
it's like the Olympics, right?
It's truly like the Olympics. And even before that, I was raised and I have so much perspective going into being in this role. I feel super grateful that I can put all of the knowledge that I've gained over the past few years to work. I have a lot to learn still, and I'm totally aware of that. And I think it's super important for everyone. If you don't know something, just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And be honest, and then go learn it.
Like what quantum means?
Yes, like what quantum means. Yes. But it's that same mentality of growing that knowledge and continuing to be super honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And working really hard at learning something. Not every meeting, but almost every meeting, I write a word down or 2 words or an acronym that I'm not familiar with. I leave the meeting and I learn it.
Yeah.
And that's just what I've done for a long time. And so I'm really excited to be in this role because I look at business development at Fort almost more so as the life cycle of a deal. I can be talking to somebody about managing their asset, and the conversation so quickly can turn to, do you want to buy my asset?
Yeah.
That's now acquisitions. Or do you have any assets for sale? And so it's more so just talking to people in the industry, growing my network, building genuine relationships, and talking about what we're doing. I'm not trying to go basically close a deal and I'm not forcing anything.
Yeah.
I am just talking about what we're doing. I'm confident in the service that we provide. And I know that real estate is about 2 things. Relationships and timing.
Yeah.
I really think that maybe now might not be the time with a relationship or a conversation that you're talking with somebody, but in 6 months, if you're persistent and you follow up with them and you just maintain a good relationship, then they'll call you. And so I am more so about being proactive, getting to know people, and being kind of confident and always having just answer the phone, be responsive. I'm also in the service industry of I'm reporting to my clients and I want them to have a good experience. And so, yeah, I'm excited.
So we were talking about this briefly before we started, but y'all started to do some of your own leasing. I think that's actually really smart based on the product type y'all own.
Yeah.
Because a lot of brokers will lie to you and tell you they're interested in leasing your small bay project for you.
Yeah. Yeah. We know where that goes.
Yeah. And, but we've struggled with that too. And it's I was whenever we were talking, I was are y'all going to do leasing in Dallas? Cause I feel like that might make some sense to just let y'all have the leasing on this
One
stuff
day.
too, but, I think is that something, are y'all looking to third party other leasing eventually, or just your assets and your third-party management assets?
So I think before we third-party lease other assets, we want to really focus on growing that department. To your point, we have 2 leasing managers in Houston. They're doing a phenomenal job. Really strong team down there, and they're led by Rob, who is in our DFW office. And so eventually, I think we'll have leasing in DFW. I think it's just something we want to be really, really strategic with. We also want it to make sense. I think it's a little bit, basically, if we don't have the portfolio, the size of the portfolio, or the role for them to be busy for a long time, we want it to make sense for them as well. And so we also have strong relationships with people leasing our stuff in DFW, and we really believe in what they're doing. And so we want to be very careful and just strategic about how we enter that DFW leasing market if and when we do. But yeah, we would have to kind of build our strength in our team before I think we third-party lease.
Yeah.
But eventually we would love to.
Well, no, I mean, I'm telling you, I think it really makes a lot of sense on especially small bay product to like have a person, like to your point, has enough rent roll to be busy a lot and to focus on those, a good amount of footage, good amount of leases expiring coming up, a lot of stuff to work on. And, but if you had one person focused on that, I think it would,
For sure.
I think it's very,
material.
We've talked about like, do we just get our own in-house leasing guy for that stuff sometimes? Because what I found too is someone sells me a business part in the, infancy of their career.
Yeah.
The first 3 years. They're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Then, then you're into year 5 of their career and they're like,
I'm done.
I'm done. Do this. So, but to your point, if you had someone in-house that has a rent roll, that keeps them incentivized to work on that project. So I think it's very smart. So.
Yeah. I think we've seen really good synergy across our property management teams and our leasing team as well. The team in Houston is super strong and they can move quickly. I think there's a natural just collaboration right there, obviously. But like when you need a bid and the leasing guy just finished a tour and the tenant was interested in this TI package, and then they literally walk over and they ask the property manager to get on it, and then you can move that much faster as well. And we've seen a lot of good synergy across both of those teams.
And those deals with those tenant sizes move fast. Like they're usually very captive and ready to sign a lease immediately.
They need the space.
Yeah. And they want to move in. They want to get something done. When we bought our first park, I just built a 5-page lease. Yeah. I was like, if I send them a NAC card, their eyes are going to cross. So.
Yeah. Well, they just won't read it and they'll call you all the time.
Yeah. They don't read this one either.
Yeah. That's funny.
I remember this. So this was, we had this project called Motor Circle that I managed back in the day. Jeff owned. And this was during the great financial crisis. Everybody started doing rent.
Abatement.
Yeah. Well, not abatement. They would just reduce your rent.
Got it.
You know what I mean? And so we had this tenant come to us and he was like, hey, y'all need to reduce my rent. We're like, okay, well, show us your financials and we'll do it. And he's like, I'm not showing you my financials. This is a guy like in 5,000 feet. Like we're not, there's no like trade secret going on in these things. He did frames. He framed pictures in the design district, And so anyways, we go back and forth with this guy forever on this. And he goes, had I known that was in the lease, I would have never signed it. And I was just like, okay. So he kept arguing about it. We're like, we're not reducing your rent until you show us your financials. And he showed us his financials and he was fine.
Yeah.
and we still reduced his rent.
Oh, that's nice.
But we made him show us his financials. We're like, you are going to do this.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's a funny story.
Well, okay, so you guys are in Texas.
Yes.
And Florida?
Texas and Florida is where we're looking to focus on acquiring new assets.
Because y'all own stuff in Memphis or
yes. We still have an asset in Memphis and Orlando and Texas. Those are our three kind of areas that if you look on the map on the website, you can kind of see those dots. But we are super focused on Texas and Florida.
Yeah.
Our investment criteria is anywhere from $10 million to $100 million. We want it to be industrial. Obviously, that's where we're focused. And the office footprint is on the lower side. And so as we continue to focus and refine our criteria, I think we start to see more and more opportunity obviously come up. And as now that we know and we're so honed in on what we want, it almost makes it easier for us because we can just target those specific assets even more aggressively. And again, going back to the relationship thing, it's just getting in front of these people. They might not be ready to sell now. Yeah. But when they do, we want to put our name in the hat. And so Texas and Florida, $10 to $100 million, industrial, light office. That is what we do.
You know what's kind of crazy is I looked at Florida, going to Florida to buy buildings.
Yeah.
And like, if you take like the Florida triangle, which I call Tampa, Orlando, Miami, if you take all of that, that's less footage than DFW.
Wow. I did not know that.
It's only 1 billion feet. DFW is 1.2.
That's crazy.
It's so like, and we don't even work in Houston. You know, we've tried to buy stuff in Houston, but we just haven't put the time in.
Is that something you guys are like interested or kind of looking into?
I don't know. I think Houston, you better have a guy down there full time.
Yeah.
We went down to Houston, tried, Will had spent some time there with the previous company. We go down there. We pretty much got sent CoStar for 6 months. And I was like, guys, I see this stuff. I got CoStar, man.
Yeah.
So I think if you really want to break into Houston, it's a big, they got 850 million feet. So there's enough footage there. If you want to break into that market, I think you need to have an office down there and an acquisitions person down there
for sure
working it. That's the challenge with like going to Florida for me is Miami's 250 million feet. Miami's a very tough market to break into. You better speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Maybe even Russian.
Yeah.
So the Tampa's really cool. Orlando's really cool. But I mean, those are only like 150 million or no, I guess, they're probably about 250 million square feet markets, so you put all, and then you have all the little markets kind of in between there. And it's just, for us, we got to find where there's good velocity. There's good velocity and we, it really depends where you have time to focus, right?
Yep.
Like Will and I can focus in here and really San Antonio. We've tried to do Austin, but we're kind of on the periphery of Austin, obviously with the assets we own.
Yep.
But San Antonio, there's someone from our team in San Antonio every other week. So we put a lot of time in down there. So I think it's just a matter of, I think you got to have in a lot of these markets, you got to have some boots on the ground people. Yep. So I think if I ever wanted to go to Florida, I would have to go out there and find a guy that is
plugged in,
where people will return his phone call, send him a deal that's not a 4 cap after you stabilize it,
Yeah, you're like, please, we need somebody to send this guy something else.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. As we continue to kind of enter that Florida market and learn the different groups and again, meet the people who know about the Florida market, it's really exciting because I think that there is a ton of opportunity there, obviously. But yeah, meeting new people is fun. I think that's one of the coolest parts is going and being like, all right, who's who? Like, we're from Texas. Like, tell me all the names. Tell me all the groups that are circling and what's the history here. And I think it's exciting. For
us, I think we're sticking to the I-35 corridor. I mean, we would buy something in Houston, but again, we don't put the reps in down there. And then just our lending platform is blown up so much. It's like, that's so exciting. It's just not, it just doesn't take a lot of bandwidth. Team bandwidth, right? I mean, you buy a big screwed up building, get ready. It's a heavy lift. Get ready to lose somebody for the next 3 months because they're living in a building, you know, and where our development or our debt pref deals, it's just like, okay, yeah, that's good. You're going to run this project. No, corporate tenant guaranteed lease. Cool. Yeah. Sounds good. Not as we have a lift. Yeah. So I think that's, we just continue to grow that platform and just, I just kind of looked at it. I was like, have we uncovered every stone in the markets we work in? And if the answer is no, then just keep on where we're at. So, so do you go into Florida and do you try to be a Florida man, like, or a Florida woman? You know what I mean? Because that's like kind of a thing. You got to. I could do that. You ever seen all the news articles? It's always like a Florida man. You've never seen this? I mean, I've seen it briefly, but no, this is a thing. I need to look into it further. So I didn't realize it until Jeff moved to Florida when he was living in Florida, and we'd go up there, and it was always a Florida man. Oh, wait. Yes, I have seen this. And then it says some crazy story that's like, was like catching an alligator. Yeah. Yes. Like, was walking his alligator on a leash. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, so, man, that's funny. Yeah. You got to brush up on your Florida man stories. Yeah, so. I need to have some more Florida man energy to me. That's funny. I'm more of an El Paso girl. Yeah. There you go. Also has funny stories too. So are you covering Florida at all? Are you covering assets over there trying to buy them, or are you just still primarily Texas? I am pretty focused on the DFW market. Yeah. I think I'm just re-engaging and like introducing myself in a different way. Some of these people know who I am. They probably knew me when I was in property management or operations. And so I'm basically telling my story and what I'm doing, what I'm focused on. I'm willing to learn. I'm a quick learner. And I just like talking to people, connecting people. DFW is where I've focused a lot of my energy, but eventually I think Florida will be something that I focus on. And then basically prospect in Florida, reach out, obviously start to kindle some fire out there and just meet with people. So, and then Fort's kind of notoriously been I call it like a small bay or shallow bay buyer. Is that still going to be the product focus, or are y'all going to expand your? That's a great question. There's kind of industrial, and then there's like some subclasses of industrial. So are y'all gonna branch out a little bit? Yeah. We used to be in our I feel like it was almost like a tagline, Class B industrial. Class B industrial. That was our super specific asset type focus. And as we grow and we move into this next stage of growth at Fort, I know that we're looking into kind of a step up in asset class, still industrial, still low office, but maybe B plus, even start looking at what it would look like to enter that A game. And so it is different for us. Obviously, we've been in this super honed in area of Class B for so long that it's exciting to kind of enter that new step up in asset class, and I'm excited. It's just nicer. It's nicer. It is nicer. It's like when you get old. It's like you get older and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that hard shit anymore. It is. I'll take lower yield on a nice building. Yes. So we are looking. We're excited to kind of step in that direction. Yeah. That being said, there are still so many. I feel like when you think of asset class, and obviously the type is industrial, but the class specifically, the higher you get, I think some people make the assumption that it has to be bigger. And there are still some smaller deals that are in that kind of asset class that we're looking at targeting. And so we still have our eyes on a lot of different sizes of that specific class, but we're excited to kind of get those more
sophisticated tenants, kind of grow that due diligence list. I think that's one thing that stepping up in classes, we've seen definitely a new demand for a certain list. The rent rolls on the napkins and all those things. We've seen that. And,
you want to buy this building?
Literally. So there is nice catch. That was awesome. That was awesome. Yeah. We need that in slow-mo.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is certainly like a pretty specific DD list, obviously both on buying and selling side of the step up in class. And so we're really focused on being faster at gathering that or whatever, automating a lot of what we have to pull every single time. We're focused on getting faster and quicker.
Yeah. Well, so now you're starting to, are you just cold calling a lot now?
I'm cold calling. I would say a lot of my calling is warm. Obviously, someone like you, the introduction coming from Chris, I like to say that that's like a boiling hot lead. That is super powerful. And I'm very grateful for all of the kind of connections that I've had, even from Will, kind of introducing me to different groups who are looking for property management services or interested in buying or selling. But yeah, I am shocked at I feel like when I was in operations and even in property management, I really did not capitalize on just like talking to people in my network. I was so focused on doing my job for so long that I almost completely neglected the like, hey, I should catch up with my professor from TCU who I did recently and it went wonderfully. Or I should go talk to this person who I know buys industrial. And it's been so fun for me to be able to kind of use that different set of skills and go talk to people and within my network. And then obviously the relationships I build with them, it expands to their network and getting those introductions. A lot of what I'm doing is coming from people within my network and them introducing me to them. And
so are a lot of people unaware that Fort does third party? Like when you kind of bring it up to them, or are people becoming more familiar with it? Or
I think people are becoming more familiar with it. We're using, obviously, LinkedIn and kind of social media to make sure that people are aware that we do third-party property management. I think now that I am in a role that I'm specifically focused on speaking about this, obviously there's a lot more knowledge in the market that I'm talking to. They know that Andrea's out there looking for property management. Yeah. And so I think that we did a really good job facilitating people who would come in and ask us. Back in the day, it was coming to us. People were asking us if it's something we would explore, and we did. And now it's more so us going to people that we know we want to manage for and kind of talking with them.
That's cool. What kind of makes you tick on a daily? Like, what do you got to do daily to like make yourself work? I hate to call it, like, people are like, what's your daily routine? I'm like, that's stupid. Like, I don't know.
There are two things.
Okay.
The first one is like, if I am going into something big, or like when I went and had my pitch meeting with you, I like breathe before I go into that. That's if I'm like kind of nervous. So I'd like I don't know. I'd watch like random breathing things where it's like breathe 2 times in or whatever. Yeah. But from a more like consistent basis, when I'm grinding, I have music on. Yeah. I've actually gotten really into it. I don't know if you've heard of like brown noise or white noise or whatever, all that stuff. But when I'm working and I'm trying to be really focused, especially because I'm kind of hyper, I usually have some sort of music going on. Music, breathing, I'm trying to think about what else.
I'm pretty big in music too.
I'm a big music person. My 8th grade, I don't think I've ever told anyone this. Maybe my family knows, but I guess I did. My 8th grade graduation quote was "Music heals my soul." And so I feel like it's.
So were you writing that in everybody's yearbook? Hey, sign my yearbook. Music heals my soul.
Yes. And so it's definitely a part of me. Growing up, I played the piano, the guitar, I sang, played the clarinet. I was a music person when I was younger. I still sing every now and then at karaoke, and it's really fun. But that's my like party trick.
So, okay, well that you may have answered it, but maybe you have something else. But I usually normally ask people, what's something about you that no one really knows?
I can sing "If I Ain't Got You" by Alicia Keys really well.
Let's hear it.
No, I can't. Imagine if I just like went off.
No, do it. Let's go.
No,
you can
I can't do it a cappella just like with the headset on. I should use this mic though. I should test.
It's a good mic.
Test.
When we started, you're like, "Hey, I'm in a studio.
Yes.
You got it. Do it.
Yeah.
No.
I have to like have a little more encouragement there. But that's probably something that people don't know about me. I also, what else? I call myself a D1 sibling. Some people know that about me.
I'm a D1 sibling.
But I think it's so funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because there are so many people who have siblings that play D1 sports like me. And there's a whole energy to us. Like we've been through it, man. We go to all the practices, all the stack tables and travel. And I'm a D1 sibling. That's something else. And every time I meet a D1 sibling, they're like, I'm a D1 sibling too. It's so funny.
You give them the title and they're like, you're right.
It's so true. They're like, someone's noticing me finally. And so, I'm a D1 sibling. Shout out to all the D1 siblings.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, that's everybody wants to be D1. Sometimes you're a D1 sibling.
Yeah. Sometimes you're a D1 sibling. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's not.
You support them. You're usually their biggest fan.
Yeah.
You go really hard when you're cheering for them.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. So, that's something people don't know about me.
That's funny. So do you not play music that much anymore?
Oh, man. I have a guitar and a ukulele in my room hanging on the wall, and I have not played them in a long, long, long time. But I, like, when I'm in the car, I usually sing to music or whatever. Back in the day, I used to be like, I'm going to go on The Voice. I'm going to be a singer.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe I'm not going to be a singer. And so the thing that I do the most is probably sing.
Yeah.
But I haven't played in a long time. I put on my Christmas list, I think 2 years in a row, guitar lessons just to like pick it back up again. But I have not done that.
There's actually pretty good online stuff for that now. Like I teach my kids guitar, and I'm like, y'all have it so easy.
There's like a Fender app too, and they have it. I had like a subscription to Fender, and I was like trying to pick it back up. Another crazy thing that I was watching something on LinkedIn recently, and it was how AI is going to teach, like how it can help teach people piano. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at the keys, it shows you like the letters of the notes. And so you're almost like thinking about it totally differently. Yep. And I was like, man, that's not fair. I'm like, I had this dusty book that I was like taking around in my bag to try and learn. But I think it's really, I love music. I've been the like playlist person in the family my whole life.
You got the aux.
Yes,
You're
I'm on aux. I'm always on aux. It's awesome.
No, I teach my daughter piano when she allows me to, but I always try to tell her like, look, the piano's only like this big.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's like these few notes.
It's like this big. Yeah. Everything here, same
copy,
things here.
Paste, copy paste.
And so that's what I played piano since I was 5. So I still sit down and play every now and then, and
that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. That's what I still try to do as much music as I can. It's I sometimes get roped into playing into bands, and bands are like a business, It's people. You got, you got to coordinate a lot of things.
It's a lot.
So, but it's fun.
I will never forget when you invited me to your concert, and I was like, automatically Googled. Like, I was just like, what do you like? Who is this? What is this band? And then I showed up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a legit band. Like, this is awesome. Yeah. That was so fun. And I was like, it really did kind of like inspire me to pick it back up, because I'm like, you can do both.
You should.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. If you've already got a good foundation laid.
Yeah.
30 minutes, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
That'll keep it maintained.
And it's nice to just like check out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can't really think about much. I mean, I have a guitar in my office. I'll stop and just sit down and play for a little bit every now and then. So.
Yeah, brain break.
It is.
That's awesome.
Well, what else about Fort? Is there anything about Fort we didn't cover today?
I think one thing we probably didn't cover, I think we covered the growth of the third-party property management pipeline, our acquisition criteria, and the fact that we want to buy something. We want to buy a lot of things, but we are really focused on Texas and Florida. But one thing that I want to give like a Fort shout out to is just I feel very grateful to be surrounded by the people that I am surrounded by at Fort. There are a handful of people who have gone above and beyond. I feel like you read about, or at least I read a lot about kind of like leadership, mentorship, people that are eager. I would like to think I'm eager to learn. I want to learn. I'm ready to listen, and I'm a quick learner. But somebody has to be willing to teach you. And that's usually not part of their job. They're just going above and beyond. And I think there are so many people at Fort that have gone above and beyond to listen to this property management intern who wants to learn about everything. And I couldn't be more grateful for the team that I'm surrounded by. People are our superpower. When people say what's different about Fort, which I get asked that a lot, it's our team. And I think a lot of people say that, but we are super agile. We receive feedback. We want feedback. And we always want to be better. So our team is awesome, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just kind of wrap it up with this. We made a pretty big decision to give you guys, y'all have over 250,000 feet of our product now. And, it's been I guess like a breath of fresh air to like have that, and the responsiveness, the attention to detail, the to your point, the feedback. Obviously when any new relationship starts, you got to like figure out how it all works together. And I'd say the first month or two would be like, hey, this happened and this. You're like, got it, fix it. It wasn't like anything bad or anything. It was just like, this is just how you get to know each other, right? And those, it was great to have, we have that the communication is top notch. And so when you have that, everything can work, right? And so that's been the thing for me. Like, I know if I email Elizabeth, like I'm probably getting a response by the time I hit send,
and a solid one.
Yeah. And, to your point too earlier about y'all's vendors and stuff like that, y'all came in immediately with numerous vendors that we didn't have on like landscaping and stuff like that just dropped cost dramatically on things like that. So I think, in addition to offloading that workload and giving it to y'all to handle, it came a lot of cost savings from the vendor pool
for sure.
And then at the same time, we still use y'all still use our vendors. We're like, hey, keep these guys in the bid mix and whatnot. And but it's been a great thing for us to do, and I'm glad we made that decision. We just moved into this office, and this office can hold up to 18 people very uncomfortably. Go. And I said, if we get to 18, I'm quitting. So offloading my property management to y'all helps me keep the 18 mark.
That's awesome. Keep outsourcing us.
Yeah, no, but at the end of the day, we really enjoy working with you guys, and it's been a great experience. And so, I think there's a lot of people out there that don't know their prospect of y'all's yet, and that they should be and will be. And but at the end.
We're really grateful for your partnership, and I hope you know that. I think you touched on the most important part, which is the communication, and I set that tone super early on with anyone that I talk to. I'm a phone call away. If you have any question or feedback, good or bad, we're running a company, and we want to hear it all. We're constantly trying to improve, and we take what we do really seriously. So we are grateful for your partnership and excited for the future.
Yeah. Well, Andrea Heist, sorry. Hang on. Will you do a promo into the thing?
Yes.
Do it. I would just be like,
Texas and Florida, third-party property management. Call me.
Andrea Heist.
Signing off. Signing off.
No, seriously. Thank you for coming in. It was great. Thank you.
Of course.
Alrighty.
I'm so glad that you invited me.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.